So now, in early December, what are the results? Well, COD is now essentially 4 games. A free-to-play, battle royale, and 3 games wrapped up in a $70 package. Campaign, multiplayer, and zombies. As best as I can measure on all the tools and analysis and stuff that I run and everybody else runs, putting all things combined, COD had a bad November. Steam usage is down close to 2/3, showing just 100,000 peak concurrents on Steam versus triple that last year, and that includes the free-to-play numbers. For what it's worth anymore, the physical disc sales that do get reported in the UK are also a data point showing significant and similar declines. Now, I worked at Game Pass since its birth, so I should be able to estimate better than most what its true numbers are across digital Xbox, Game Pass, and the Windows Store based on what indicators we have, but I ain't going to share those here. But even if you wrap all of that up, it still doesn't look great. The franchise, for all the contextual reasons, was coming in behind the curve, and the good and talented people behind the game didn't suddenly get less talented. Any perception of drop in quality or lack of progress is always a budget or organization issue. And so it sucks for all concerned that it's landed this way and seems to be underperforming versus the last couple of years. COD is down in a year when Microsoft really needed a big win to justify the all-new and improved Game Pass price. Being more stark, Microsoft spent more money than anyone or any organization has ever spent on anything ever, in no large part adding Call of Duty to Game Pass. And this, so far, isn't a good return on a $74 billion investment. However, on the outside, for the first time, some will say in a long time, I'll say ever, the reveal of the next Call of Duty is legitimately interesting. We assume the next game is Modern Warfare 4. I mean, there's no way they're going to ship a third Black Ops game in a row, and I don't think anyone's waiting for Vanguard 2. But the Modern Warfare trilogy is complete. They've made it twice now, and the third, as we just discussed, went down badly. So the sequel to that is not something people are looking forward to. And can you really take down Zampella's now triumphant return to premium shooters with a 7th entry in the franchise he originally built? And Zampella, by the way, is triumphant. Whilst COD is down year over year, Battlefield 6 nailed it. Against COD's 100,000 peak Steam players, which also equals the usage of the last Battlefield game, give or take, Battlefield 2042, Battlefield 6 posted 750,000 peak users on Steam. Now, that does include the free-to-play numbers, which might boost it up a little bit, but it is a great return to form. It looks incredible. The Battle Royale mode, I don't think is on fire, but it does keep people looking for that inside the franchise and helps pump those usage numbers up the finance guys like so much. However, Battlefield does have a trend normally where the good players get very, very good, unlocking better weapons, being able to pilot things that aren't just, like me, kamikaze fireballs, map exploits, coordinated teams. But there are already bots and tools they're using to maybe keep that elite game away from the more casual players. But where the game goes or whatever is actually not the most interesting thing. What's interesting is what happens between the 3 power dynamics happening here. Zampella, whatever his pros and cons are, has delivered what was asked of him. And he likes control, just as Activision. Then there's EA, who have their own way of working annualized franchises like this. And yes, Zampella's done stuff for them before, but they really treat these shooter games very differently than, say, a Star Wars game. And they did just drop a poorly received $25 battle pass, for example, that I think just proves my point. And what about the third factor? They're all being bought by Saudi Arabia for $55 billion. Does that mean nothing other than ownership? Or are there cuts coming? Studio amalgamations, new leadership? Or will budgets triple? Will they have the blank check needed to lean in and make Battlefield the new gold standard? There's a full opportunity here for them to grow into the Call of Duty space and others markets, or they could piss it all away in corporate bullshit. Whatever it is, it won't be the EA of old, so what will it be? It's interesting, right? Okay, Arc Raiders then is the takeaway winner of the whole thing. At a fraction of the budget, especially on marketing. I mean, they're not an indie, they're kind of been positioned a little bit as kind of the underdogs here. They're a massive studio, but Arc posted usage of over 450,000 players at peak in November. And, you know, the vibe is good. The studio, including Soderlund, are saying and patching the right things. Their challenge, I think, is the eternal algorithm shift, or what we used to call the Eternal September. That's where tech is social, let's say Twitter, and left-wing, tech-savvy people go there first. They love it, they use its tools and their nuances properly, it grows, and then the masses arrive and everything gets the opposite, messy, loud, controversial, more right-wing, and the subtle features of the platform are completely ignored. Blue Sky has basically been quivering in a corner waiting for this to happen anytime soon. In Arc Raiders terms, this is seen across every message board you look at, with people saying, enjoy it while it lasts, before the COD bros arrive. Can the devs mitigate against people just mass murdering fellow players because they don't care or to play the game properly or in the long term? Maybe, and that might make it tough to scale. But frankly, I don't think the launch could have gone better for them, so it's nothing but positive stuff for Arc Raiders right now. Fortnite is a whole podcast in itself. I mean, they just had Gavin Newsom in the game.
Led me to get back to San Francisco and start marrying those same-sex couples in response to...
Did you figure out how to get to the lobby yet?
Getting back to the lobby.
I mean, it's a metaverse now, not a game anymore, but as an aside, it's worth mentioning here, The Simpsons seems to have performed well, but crucially down by as much as 50% on OG and even the Daft Punk event from earlier in the year. And it would have been worse than The Simpsons, but it makes the continued narrative of Fortnite being a terminally ill giant hard to counter. Although it's worth emphasizing that there may be a lot of unpaying kids in the numbers of Fortnite versus people paying $70 to get in the door for the other games, but there's still more people playing Simpsons Fortnite than everything else we're talking about here today combined. The Fortnite Simpsons peaked somewhere around 10 million players in November versus Arc Raiders killing it in the hundreds of thousands. Fortnite isn't dying, it's Mickey Mouse big. And they have really cool unannounced plans for 2026 to come out, but it is shrinking. And what its resting base is, that's what's going to be interesting in the long term. Lastly, Tarkov was already niche in being hardcore to play, and especially with the developers' antics. But there was a chance this would burst out in that Rust, Stalker, Chernobyl Ferris wheel thing that seems to exist. But it looks like it's staying basically where it is. Its peak usage has actually declined since launch, with previous pre-launch highs of 150, 200,000 players dropping to around 50,000 in November. So what are the takeaways? I don't buy into COD fatigue. After all, players seem to like consistency with gradual change as the way to go rather than wanting something fresh. Successful games as a service, when viewed from outside, change very little. The move of players to extraction shooters seems more like that mode is just made for some people. It's their roller coaster and that's what they like, it's just not for everyone. Rather than bored COD bros looking for a fresh thrill. But expect more modes and flavors in the market to see what else is out there that this can fracture into. And if that is a trend, it's moving away from the all things to all people offering that COD and maybe even Battlefield have tried to deliver over the years. It's a dereliction of duty for these big studio heads to ignore trends and growth in your competitors, especially if you're actively losing players to them. You can't sit on top of a multi-billion-dollar franchise and be complacent. Even privately owned companies struggle if they aren't growing. It's hard to plan next year to have a smaller budget because your title is slowly dying and be okay with that. That's just not how things work. That's not what you're paid to do. Which means, in practical terms, expect everyone to add an extraction shooter mode, specifically modeled on Arc, rather than Tarkov. COD maps, though, are too small, and both it and Battlefield aren't looters. There's no in-game item loop, so they will struggle to replicate it, but they'll have to try. Even Fortnite experimented with a Simpsons version called Delulu in November. From a player perspective, though, wider options are refining what they like, and they are enjoying the choice. If they find the right flavor that suits them and their friends, they might move their weekly or daily play sessions permanently. And that could be smaller, more niche experiences. Arc has proven out now that there is a market for PvPvE games, but I don't think that market has to exclusively be shooters. Expect smart indies to find clever ways of adding real stakes in all sorts of games. There's a great example right now in an upcoming indie title called Another Door, which adds real stakes against real people in a game that's just about choices. I mean, the much cheaper to produce variants of these extraction shooters like Escape from Tarkov which is an unashamed single-player mashup of Tarkov and Seavert, but with ducks, also came out in November and hit 244,000 peak on Steam. That's with no multiplayer. So very real success can be had in pulling players away from the biggest IPs. If managed successfully, and they're doing a pretty good job so far, Arc Raiders, I think, has the most potential to be the next PUBG, by which I mean a premium title, well maintained, that quietly puts in brilliant numbers for years to come. I'm not quite sure if that's what the team wants to do that's making it. Specialization rather than all things to all men might be the future, and they could be the poster child of just being one particular thing. Now, I haven't even discussed the other shooters in the periphery, like Rainbow Six's fight with Ready or Not and Delta Force that saw them go partly free to play, or the huge fight going on with hero shooters between Valorant, Overwatch, Marvel Rivals, Team Fortress 2, and of course Counter-Strike still has millions of users every week on Steam. But the trends are all the same, apart from Counter-Strike maybe, which is kind of solid as a rock, but I think that literally has the same human beings logging into it for years now. All of them are down. Not designed to age out, they are aging out. Even Marvel Rivals, which is fresh, and it hit 160,000 peak users on Steam in November, which is good for a non-new release, and of course it's across many different platforms. But that's their lowest figures yet, and it continues a downward trend, which is more worrying. This has been a long tech generation, gaming-wise, made up of mostly small iterations. Players are bored, and they want something fresh. The hope that all can take from all of this is that the biggest graphics didn't win. The biggest budget didn't win. IP didn't win. It's the gameplay and the quick patching and the community service that, as always, is gaining fans right now. And that's scalable to anyone. Now, there are big shooters coming in 2026, but James Bond, Toxic Commando, New Gears, Boltgun 2, High on Life 2, I'm sure they're missing some big ones. But I don't think any of them are really aiming to move millions of players into a new games as a service ecosystem. Maybe Bungie is, but no, 2025 was the fight, because the predictable challenge in 2026 is GTA. Now, GTA is a very different experience to anything else we've talked about today, but it is a multiplayer shooter with co-op teams. And after a 15-year wait for the sequel to one of the biggest multiplayer titles of all time, and it is launching as the highest budgeted and most hyped entertainment product ever, and it's launching in November 2026, which is why this year's fight was so crucial. So if you're making a game, learn from all of this quickly and pivot. You can probably pivot a lot faster than the big guys can. That's why they have to move now and not next year. It's a volatile market, but it's more wide open than ever, and the big guys have already made their move. If you're just observing, then grab some popcorn, because this has industry level upheaval attached to it, and more than ever, players are going to choose the winners, not budgets and not platforms. I'm going to be following the whole thing. Follow me. It's going to be a long story, but it's going to be fascinating. There'll be winners and losers. Until next time, take care.